Hello everybody, welcome back. This is ZDS here, and with Pokemon Sword and Shield just over the horizon, about 2 weeks away from us at the time of this recording, I figured I'd get at least one more video out, just kind of discussing a little bit about the game, and what my speculations for are in regards to said game and the content that it might offer. Now, first of all, I have been very quiet since my videos back in August and July about any of the recent leaks or news regarding Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I do have a legitimate reason for that, although it is sort of a bit of a dumb one. The simple reason is that I don't want to spoil myself any further than I already have with the contents that the game might have. Now, granted, we already know, very much so, about the limited Pokedex and yada yada yada, stuff like that. People have been covering that to death for a while now, and honestly, it doesn't really have much bearing on my personal opinion on the game at the very moment, since obviously we don't know exactly what is being cut, and we won't know until the game releases unless there's some leaks that come out beforehand. So I figured, after my last 3 videos covering Sword and Shield and just covering the bullshit that I've already discussed is a very big problem with the series in general and overall with the release of the new games, I figured I'd go ahead and talk about something a little bit closer to home, and that would be in regards to, well, the fact of the matter is, I don't care very much anymore. And I'm not saying that I don't care about Pokemon. Obviously, I am a massive megaton humanoid demonic fan of fucking Pokemon, and I always will be. There's never going to be a time where there will be a point in my life where I will not at least enjoy some of the older Pokemon games. There will always be a space for Pokemon in my heart. But when I say the words, I don't care, I'm not referring to the game as a whole or what the game is going to offer. My point of the matter is that I've basically just come to accept over the past few months, after watching several different videos and other reviews and other things about Pokemon and the community and the fan base at large, that essentially a lot of the things in Pokemon are just going to have to stay. And a couple of things that I did notice was that supposedly, and this is not fully substantiated with exact proof or what have you, but it does seem pretty plausible to me at least, that the developers of Pokemon Sword and Shield have announced that, or at least at some point announced, that the Pokemon games from coming in the future will eventually have all of the Pokemon that are in the series. It does very much so contradict the statement that was made early on in the game's announcement that, in fact, they would not be including every Pokemon in future releases, and they would, in fact, continue to cut Pokemon with every additional sequel. However, there is one facet of that that does really not make any sense, and I apologize if I'm beating a dead horse here, but there's no reason to cut anything. Now, keep in mind a couple of things. This is also due to, honestly, my intense bias. I was going to discuss this in a previous video, but I figured I'll go ahead and just discuss it now. The concept of them cutting Pokemon to cut corners around the production time in order to establish some sort of, I guess, link of coherency or something in regards to the series as a whole, perhaps that's the wrong word. More specifically, they are trying to make sure, like, the reason that I have heard most often as to why they're cutting anything in the first place, that makes the most sense to me personally anyway, is that Pokemon as a franchise is not just the video games. It is the TCG, it's the merchandise, t-shirts, fucking plushies, the anime, in fact, and movies, and all these other things that tie in to the Pokemon series as a whole. Despite the fact that it started with the games, it branched out to become, as 99% of Pokemon fans have already addressed this, the #1 most profitable media franchise in the world. Beating out everything. Marvel, fucking DC, fucking Disney even. The Disney Princess line, everything. And surprisingly enough, Hello Kitty, although I didn't really expect that to be a lucrative business, to be honest. However, it does come second fiddle to Pokemon, which still to this day confuses me. But, all in all, I'm not saying that it's a good reason, but it is most likely the reason why they're cutting here. Now, granted, I am still firmly in the belief from my last video regarding Pokemon Sword and Shield, that we will eventually get every single Pokemon in the game through either DLC or some other form of unlockability in the game, or even more likely than that would be probably hackers might end up just doing that themselves, accessing the Pokemon Home feature and Pokemon Bank to find a way to break through the code, I suppose, and actually access the game's internal data enough to where they can pull every single Pokemon in the game from Pokemon Bank and pull them into the Galar region. I would not at all be surprised if that is something that developers of, indie titles, or maybe not indie title developers, I'm probably going the wrong direction there, but just in general, people who like to hack the Pokemon games and develop source code or whatever, I have a feeling that is a very strong possibility that somebody, when the games are released in about 2 weeks, is going to start trying to do that. I don't exactly know how effective it will be because, but just in general, I am not a programmer. I may be a computer guy, but I am certainly not well-versed in video game programming. So I don't exactly know the particulars about that, but just kind of, I always get sidetracked in these videos and I always mess up what I'm exactly trying to talk about. So forgive me if it takes me 1,000 years to get to the fucking point. But the point of this video is to discuss one particular aspect, and that is the cut Pokemon, but more specifically, the Pokemon I almost can guarantee you will not be cut. First and foremost, all of the Pokemon, to me at least, that are based in a set. For example, they did announce that Charizard and its evolutionary line will be in Pokemon Sword and Shield, which to me says that they're not going to keep out the other 7 starter Pokemon, 21, 24? How many? 7 times 3 is 21. So yeah, whatever. The other 7 generations worth of starter Pokemon, I see no reason why they would cut those. Now granted, again, I'm not exactly in the mind of Game Freak, but that does seem like a very odd omission if they do go that route. Next to that, all of the regional box legendaries. For example, Reshiram, Zekrom, Kyurem, Ho-Oh, Lugia, Mewtwo is definitely not getting cut, no matter what the fucking trailers say, because, simply put, it's a fucking mascot Pokemon, so they're not going to cut it. Obviously, they're not cutting the Pikachu line. There's a substantial amount of Generation 1 Pokemon that I cannot see them cutting. There are, however, a couple that I can. For example, the Parasect line, which basically has had no point of usage whatsoever, even since its introductory generation, and I personally don't think that it'll have any usage in the future, since obviously they've completely scrapped the idea of Mega Evolutions, and although a Galarian form Parasect wouldn't be a too bad idea, it's very unlikely considering how obscure that Pokemon is. A various amount of grass and poison types in general from Generation 1, or just specifically grass types like Victory Bell, for example, I would imagine them being cut. Pokemon that are self-contained in a single generation that don't have really any outlier in another generation that came afterwards, and don't have any companion Pokemon in the generations whatsoever, seem like they would be the ones most likely to be cut. Now, of course, my theory of just stating that was disproven with the concept of Sirfetch'd, but as a general concept, I think that it's a safe assumption to go by. Another kind of group of Pokemon that I really couldn't see being cut is, well, anything that has a pair. So, for example, they did announce that Gardevoir was going to be in the game, and as all of you probably hopefully know by now, Gardevoir is my favorite Pokemon, so I'm very happy about that. Along with that, Lucario is also going to be in the game, which is something I'm also very fucking happy about. So, with my line of theory on the starters not being cut as well, that puts 4 of my top 5 favorite Pokemon in the game, the other 2 being Delphox and Primarina. Now, my number 3 favorite at the time of this recording has not been announced, released, or shown off, and that is Zoroark. Now that, I don't see a reason why they would cut it, because it is sort of a gimmick Pokemon. It was a Pokemon that starred in its own movie. It's a Pokemon that got a lot of screen time, and that's primarily the reason that I'm thinking that they won't cut it. There's certain Pokemon that I just can't see them cutting because of the lavishing of screen time, resources, merchandise, and money that they poured into that specific species, or even general various different species over the course of the franchise. And another concept for that would be, again, Pokemon that evolve like through set evolutions. Like, for example, since Gardevoir is going to be in there, Gallade is obviously going to be in there. Now, considering the fact that Gallade will be in the game, and Gallade is one of only 2 Pokemon that evolve via the Dawnstone, the other Pokemon that evolve via the Dawnstone, I don't see them cutting. As a matter of fact, I don't see them cutting any of the Pokemon that evolve via the Elemental Stones whatsoever. So, Pokemon that evolve via Fire Stones, such as Arcanine, Ninetales, Eevee, and Flareon, which has been confirmed to be in the game. Pokemon that evolve via Water Stones, such as Cloyster and Shelder and Poliwhirl, as well as Eevee as well. Pokemon that evolve via the Leaf Stone, which does actually coincide with the theory that, or actually contradict the theory of the grass types being cut, because after all, Gloom does evolve from the Leaf Stone and the Sunstone into Vileplume or Bellossom, respectively. So that's also another thing that I don't think they would cut. Same thing with Thunderstone, Dawnstone, Shiny Stone, Moonstone, Sunstone, Duskstone. None of those stones, I believe, will be removed from the game. Same thing with all the other evolutionary items that go with trade evolutions, such as the Metal Coat and the Dragon Scale, which are used to evolve Scyther into Scizor, Onix into Steelix with the former, and Seadra into Kingdra with the latter. Now, as far as the other trade evolutions go, those are kind of a mixed bag, but considering the attention that they gave Alakazam in Generation 6 with Mega Alakazam, and the attention that they gave Golem's line with the Alolan form Golem in Generation 7, I don't believe that they would cut those 2. Machamp is kind of another set on that, but basically, Pokemon with unique evolution methods, whether it be stone-based or be happiness-based, such as the Eevee evolutions, or even Pokemon like the baby Pokemon, although I wouldn't have any problem, and I don't think anybody would, with them cutting the baby Pokemon out of the game completely. Now, this would, however, disclude, apparently, Riolu and Togepi, who I do not consider baby Pokemon simply because of the TCG does not label them as babies, they label them as basic Pokemon. But Pokemon like Magby, Smoochum, Elekid, and then of course Cleffa, Igglybuff, and Pichu, although probably not Pichu would be cut, but the former 2, there's really no reason to have them in the game. They're basically just Pokedex munchers. Same thing in regards to Pokemon like Sunflora, pretty much just a garbage horde Pokemon that doesn't need to be in the game. Same thing with Unknown, although Unknown is a very gimmicky Pokemon as well, so I don't really see them getting rid of it. But again, that's just kind of conjecture on that part. Beyond that, if you try to go later in the generations, you can see Pokemon like... I think Pokemon that would be likely to get cut that did receive attention previously would be some of the Generation 3 Pokemon that don't have much in the way of presence, rather. One of them, off the bat, coming up is, unfortunately, one of my favorite electric types, Manectric. Along with that would also be Medicham, which both don't really have much presence in the game. Illumise and Volby as well would also be likely candidates to be cut. Outside of that, Pokemon that are other in the Gen 3 lineup, such as, well, obviously, I don't believe personally that any of the legendaries are going to be cut no matter what. Except maybe Fion and big maybe on Regigigas, but outside of that, the legendaries are supposed to be in the game, and I don't see why they would be cut whatsoever. Moving a little bit further on to Gen 4, we do have some pretty useless Pokemon like Kricketune, for example, the Wormadam line with Mothim and Burmy. Those are pretty much useless and don't really need to be in the game whatsoever. Gigalith, although I do like it, it is kind of a waste of a spot considering it's basically a Golem clone. Outside of those, I mean, there's not a hell of a lot of Gen 5 Pokemon they would cut. I would assume there would be some that I like that they would, possibly like Liepard and... Oh, there you go. There's another example right on screen now, Maractus. Maractus is probably going to be cut. I don't see a reason why it would stay in. And same thing with Cacturn. And... holy shit, I almost died. With fucking Cacturn and Cacnea, 2 more Pokemon that I really don't think have any real presence whatsoever in Pokemon, especially in Generation 3, because there were plenty of other grass types that are much better, and it just kind of felt like a waste of Pokedex space. Now, just a side trick before I continue on to Generation 6 and 7, this entire problem that Pokemon Company is dealing with in regards to supposedly not having enough space for every Pokemon in the game is entirely their own fault. They never... I can't believe it. I cannot believe that after 20 some odd years of Pokemon that they never saw this coming. I believe personally that this has been something that they've been thinking about for a long time, and I think I'm probably quoting them directly on that, but I don't remember. But... oh, there's another one right in front of me, Alomomola, another Pokemon that I don't think would be kept... and speaking of which, it's the Pokemon that it was supposed to evolve from, Love Disc, also, I'm pretty sure is going to be cut as well. Just a lot of these Pokemon that just basically are filler in the Pokédex, I believe will just simply be removed. I'm not so certain that a lot of the Generation 7 Pokemon will be cut. Most likely not. I can't see really any of them being cut personally. Same thing in Generation 6, but Generation 6 I don't see being cut primarily and pretty much only because it is a very small regional Pokédex, the smallest out of the entire series. Generations like 4, 5, and possibly some bits of 1 appear to me to be the ones to be the most likely to get cuts. Generation 3 would probably get some severe cuts as well. But as far as 6, 7, and 2, because of their much lower Pokédex number count, I don't see them having any really major cuts. Now, on to some Pokemon that I really... because most of what I've just mentioned is Pokemon that I honestly don't care if they're cut. But to kind of stem into some Pokemon that I think might be cut, that I actually like, let's get into the mythical Pokemon. Now, I'm not saying that all the mythical Pokemon, or for all intents and purposes, any of them, will be cut. However, the possibility of them being cut is in fact there, and it is mostly due to the fact that they are event-exclusive Pokemon. The most likely one to me to get cut would be Manaphy, because Manaphy does not really serve any purpose other than the movie that it was in the Manaphy movie, whatever the fuck it was called, Manaphy and the King of the Sea or some shit like that. And outside of that, it hasn't really been a fan favorite. In fact, I don't really care much for Manaphy design-wise, and plus it being a fucking crybaby in the movie wasn't exactly something that I found very appealing to begin with. But I don't really want to see a Pokemon like that get cut, so definitely it's more of a personal opinion on that one. On top of that, some other Pokemon I could probably see getting cut, would sadly be Pokemon like Victini. Victini is one of my favorite Fire-type legendary Pokemon. It's right up there with Reshiram, in fact, as being one of my top 3. And unfortunately, outside of its minor presence in the event in the original Black and White, which is how I got access to it in this file here, it doesn't really have much screen time. It has a movie dedicated to it, and that's about it. And it doesn't really show up in any other promotional material, any other supplementing material. It pretty much just fell by the wayside. I'm kind of going through my Pokemon card binder, actually, right now, looking through some stuff here. To kind of cover one or two more things that I don't think they will cut, Fossil Pokemon and the Pseudo-Legendaries, I highly doubt will get cut. Because we already have confirmation of, I believe it's Dragonite, Tyranitar, Hydreigon, and Metagross, I think? I could be wrong on that, or it's Goodra, one of those. But since they're including, I know they have at least half of them revealed out of the 8, so I really see no point to them not releasing the other 4. They might make them regional, not regional, but fucking exclusive to one version or the other, which would be fine. I wouldn't really mind that. But I'm trying to think of some other Pokemon to kind of wrap up this video that I think would probably get cut. And one of the ones that I'm thinking of right off the top of my head is actually something that I stated earlier was probably not going to happen, and that is some Generation 7 Pokemon, more specifically Magearna and Marshadow, because, let's be clear, outside of a movie, and I don't even know if Marshadow got a movie, I know Magearna did, they have no premise whatsoever in Pokemon Pokemon Sun and Moon, and they really, well, maybe with the exception of Magearna, they don't really fit much of the quote-unquote aesthetic that Sword and Shield is supposedly the reason that they're cutting Pokemon for in the first place. Other Pokemon, I could honestly expect the Ultra Beasts to be completely removed because they were such an integral part of the Sun and Moon storyline. I honestly don't think that they're going to come back, although I really would be mad if they released They opened up with 3 more Ultra Beasts, 4 if you include Poipole, before the end of the generation, and to just remove them would be a massive kick in the nuts. Along with that is another mythical Pokemon in the form of Zeraora, which I really think they might cut. Zeraora is my current favorite electric type that is not, that is a legendary Pokemon, and I would really hate to see it get cut. Just kind of scrolling through a little bit more of this. Pokemon like Hawlucha, I mean, probably not a cut candidate, but probably as well. It's kind of hard to tell, really. Next to that, Pokemon like Klefki, probably obvious cuts. Carbink, if they cut... They couldn't cut Carbink without cutting Diancie, so they would probably have to cut them both if they cut one or the other. Pokemon like Barbaracle and Malamar, Slurpuff, Aromatisse most likely wouldn't be in the game, although Aromatisse might still be there, and Slurpuff probably too, actually, now that I think about it, because they are the poster children for the Fairy type from Generation 6 when it was released. A lot of the mouse-based Pokemon like Diggersby I could see getting cut, but pretty unlikely considering. Now, as far as other Pokemon that I actually don't want to see cut, I could very easily see the Kyurem forms from Pokemon Generation 5, Black and White 2, being cut completely. The main reason is because they're obviously skimping on some things with Mega Evolution and introducing the Dynamax forms and stuff, and I don't see a lot of these Pokemon getting in. And to be even more clear, Tornadus, Thundurus, and Landorus I can also see getting cut, which would be a major kick in the dick for me, because I really like those Pokemon. And sticking with Generation 5, 3 more that I think would get cut would be the mythical Pokemon Keldeo, Meloetta, and Genesect for similar reasons to what I mentioned earlier about not really having much in the way of screen presence. Same thing goes for actually a lot of the Pokemon in Generation 5 now that I look at the Pokedex more clearly. Stunfisk, Excelgor, Cryogonal, Golurk, Pawniard, Bouffalant. I'm just running down a list here because a lot of these Pokemon just don't really fit within the general concept of the region. But if I kind of skip past a little bit of Gen 5 here and kind of return back to Gen 4 to kind of continue what I was talking about there, I could unfortunately see some of the Pokemon evolutions being cut. Now, if they cut any of the evolutions, they have to cut the Pokemon that evolves from it. So if they were to cut Yanmega, they would have to cut Yanma. Same thing with Tangrowth and Tangela, Rhyperior and Rhydon, Lickitung and Licky, Magnezone and Magnemite, all those kind of Pokemon. And Generation 4 is one of my personal favorite generations, partially because of the reason that there are so many different evolutions of previous Pokemon in the game. So seeing any of those cut would probably be even more heart-wrenching than losing a legendary or two. Along with that, I could probably see Pokemon like Cherim and other non-notable Pokemon like that being cut. One Pokemon that I could see being cut that I really don't want to see cut would be Lopunny, which is my favorite of all the normal-type Pokemon, especially after it received its Mega Evolution, but its Mega Evolution is the only reason why in competitive play, which apparently Nintendo and Game Freak have taken a very big interest in, it is the only reason why anybody used Lopunny in the first place. So the likelihood of it getting cut is pretty high, at least in my opinion, and I really, really hope that's not the case, because I really fucking love Lopunny. It's one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. Seeing it get cut would just be a major kick in the dick even further. On the other hand, though, Pokemon like Skuntank, Purugly, Chingling, Bonsly, Bronzong, Mime Jr., Happiny, Chatot, Spiritomb, running on the Pokedex, essentially. None of those Pokemon really have any sort of presence in the series whatsoever, so I could see them getting removed as well. And I guess to kind of round out this video, because we are kind of hitting the 25-minute mark, and it has been a fucking long-ass journey for me to get to the damn point, while I don't want them to cut anything, obviously, because I love this franchise, I love this series. I have over 11,000 Pokemon cards. I have digital or physical copies of every single main series Pokemon game. I have put tens, if not almost 100,000 hours into the various Pokemon games across the series. Seeing anything get removed from my favorite thing that is not a person or a food in the world, basically get removed, is just heart-wrenching and heartbreaking to me. But, and this is probably going to surprise couple maybe of you, probably not very many of you though, considering I'm a Pokemon YouTuber primarily, I'm still getting the game. I'm getting Pokemon Sword when it releases on November 15th. I will be doing a Let's Play of that game, and if my Ultra Moon Let's Play is not done by the time it releases, I will put Ultra Moon on the back burner and focus my full attention onto Sword and Shield. It seems counterintuitive. It seems really dumb. It seems really fucking hypocritical for me to constantly, fucking, what's the word I'm looking for? Berate and just all another shit on some of the concepts that are being released for this game, and then still say I'm gonna buy it, but I'm a loyal Pokemon fan. They're gonna give us a good Pokemon game. That's not a question of yes or no. It is going to be a good Pokemon game. I don't really think there's so much thing as a bad Pokemon game if you're talking about the main series, with the exception of some of the more antiquated things in the Generation 1 and 2 games. But even then, I play Pokemon Gold and Silver on my phone all the time, and I fucking love those games. I can run through Pokemon Gold in less than 6 hours. But, to be fair, there are things about the series that have stagnated, and unfortunately, one of the things that has stagnated is the overabundance of useless Pokemon. Now, again, to reiterate one last time, I don't think they're going to cut anything important. I would be very surprised if they did. But as far as some other minor useless Pokemon, like the ones I mentioned in the video, or even some event legendaries that I really hope they don't cut, I can see why they're doing this. I don't agree with it. I don't like it. I'm still going to buy the game anyway because I'm a hopeless child and I can't stop gleaming to nostalgia and just absolutely showing obsessive adoration for a collection of digital pixelated monsters in a cartridge or a disc on a piece of metal and plastic. But Pokemon has been my life for 23 years, or 21 years. I am 25 years old. It's 90% of my life almost, so to say that I'm not going to enjoy Pokemon Sword and Shield would probably be a lie. There's never been a Pokemon game I haven't enjoyed, at least a little bit, at least the main series-wise, and of course the Mystery Dungeon series, which are both all fucking phenomenal games. But time will tell. I will address all of these concerns and more as I go through the Let's Play. So come the 15th, 16th, 17th of November, I'm recording this on Halloween, by the way, so that's probably why you might be a little confused, but come the last few weeks of November, or last few days of November before, the game comes out, I mean, I'm gonna share my opinions. I'm gonna let you guys all know, like, did you buy this game? Is it worth the trouble as a Pokemon fan? Is it a game that's good for beginners? If not the fact that every other Pokemon game in the fucking franchise, besides probably Pokemon Generation 5, is good for beginners, but regardless of that, I don't know. And that was the main point I wanted to kind of get across in this video. I am going to address all of those issues and more in my eventual Let's Play of the game. So I guess that's going to go ahead and do it for my last Pokemon Sword and Shield video before the game's release. I find it unlikely that I will do another video before the games come out. But if I do, well, you guys will see it anyway, and it'll probably be just a brief overview of something. But yeah, I hope you guys definitely look forward to the Let's Play of this game that I will be doing once the game releases. And yeah, that's about all I got to say. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like to support the channel, the links to my Twitter and my Patreon will be in the description down below. So support me, I have the ability to. And if you guys like any of this content whatsoever, please share it with your friends and let everybody know, that kind of thing, blah, 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 whatever. And if you guys have any ideas for future content, please leave your suggestions in the comment section down below, and I will reply to any that I can see, and I will do my best in the future to make videos regarding around your guys' suggestions. So until next time, this has been ZDS, making YouTube for fun one video at a time, and here's hoping Pokemon Sword and Shield are as excellent as Pokemon needs to be. Catch you guys later.